All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it's finally here. It's rivalry week. It's the most exciting time. It's when smack talk gets the most heated. It's when families get torn apart over football. It is one of the greatest weeks of the year. 364 days can't even live up to the days that we play our rivalry games. It's also Thanksgiving weekend, which means food, family, friends, and football. All those great things. But my co-host, the man who never tells the side dish joke because it's way too corny, Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Perhaps I love this weekend of the year. I know there's some rivalry games that happen, sprattered all throughout the entire season. But when it gets to this weekend where we have the majority of them and in-state rivalries, families, like you said, families picking sides, it's something where bragging rights is on the line for a long, long time. And these games have, weird trophies, history behind it. Crazy things happen year over year. People remember them for 50, 60 years after it occurred. It's amazing. It's something that just truly makes college football what it is, makes college sports what it is, and it will endure forever across all generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in our household, we do have the rivalry when it comes to the game. We have a family, I guess, kind of divided there. There's one member that goes for the wrong side. But but because this weekend is so huge for us, folks, we're dividing it into two parts. Early part, which is going to be the rivalry games played on Thursday and Friday of Thanksgiving week. And then part two is going to come out later. That is going to be our Saturday rivalry games. So make sure you're checking out both episodes and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get notified every single time we drop a new episode, every single time we drop a individual game episode. Folks, we had over 10,000 views last week. We got over 12,000 views. It's remarkable. Can't believe what's going on here. It's Thanksgiving, so we're thankful for all of you guys. Like, subscribe, wherever you ever get your podcast from. That's all I'm going to say. And Fresh, let's get into our first game. It's been played starting all the way back in 1901. This is on Thanksgiving night. I know Thanksgiving's normally dominated by the NFL, but this is a remarkable rivalry game. It's for the Golden Egg Trophy. Yes, we're talking about the Egg Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. Ole Miss traveling to Mississippi State. It's not the same without the Pirate, I'll say that much. But right now, Ole Miss is an 11-point favorite at time of record. That spread has gone back and forth between 11.5 down to 10.5 as well. Over under set at 55 points. Fresh, who you got going for Ole Miss, Mississippi State? The Bulldogs got any chance in this one?
Well, first off, I just love the Egg Bowl. It's that one that's kind of everyone sort of like puts on the side. It's not doesn't have the Iron Bowl or the Civil War or Ohio State, Michigan, old fashioned hate. Florida State. It's kind of the other one sort of tucked away, but it means so much to everyone there in the state of Mississippi. And actually, it has had some of the craziest endings, very fluky back and forth where you have the gritty fan base of Mississippi State down there and, shaking the cowbells, and then the haughty toddies up there in the Grove and Ole Miss. It's a complete, culture clash when it comes to this rivalry, and it actually makes it even that much better and really just lasts forever. And you kind of look at it, Mississippi State has actually always been that one team that's been there lurking around, and they've pulled off some of the craziest upsets in this game. It's always favored, usually for Ole Miss, but Mississippi State's pulled off some of the better ones over time. And you kind of go back in the annals. 1999, the Bulldogs were down 20-6 in the fourth quarter. They eventually somehow tied the football game at 20-all. And with seconds remaining, Ole Miss decides to run a play instead of taking it to overtime. The pass was then picked off, and Mississippi State gets in field position, kicks a game-winning field goal, and wins the ball game. Or in 2007, again, Bulldogs are down 14-0, less than 8 to go in the fourth quarter. Under Ed Orgeron, the Rebels decide to go for it on fourth down, trying to ice the ball game. They get stuffed. Somehow that gives the Bulldogs a massive, burst of energy, and that propels them to a 17-14 win there in the fourth quarter. 2013, the first actual, real showdown here that it actually went to overtime. Bulldogs are down 10-7. Dak Prescott's all banged up, is out of the game, comes back in, leads Mississippi State down on the field, kicks a game-time field goal right as clock hits 0, and then in overtime on fourth down, punches it in for the game-winning touchdown to take out Ole Miss. And then last year, the last game with the Pirate, we didn't know it at the time when it happened, but Ole Miss drives down the field, scores a touchdown, down 2, going for a 2-point conversion, and Mississippi State Bulldogs stuff them, deny them the opportunity, and pull out the victory 24-22 it was the Pirates' actually last game, which is really and much more meaningful where we are a year from that. But just shows the anything can happen in these kind of games. Craziness can ensue. Memories last forever, and it doesn't matter what your record is when it comes to rivalries. You lay it all on the line for that one game, because if you win this one game, bragging rights for a year, you might be 1-11, but you still beat your rival. Especially if you upset them or keep them from a bowl game, it really ends up being more. And you also sometimes outside of these, crazy upsets, you have some just crazy endings. So in 1983, it was a legendary ending. If you have film and you can look it up on YouTube or listen to a radio call for the Mississippi State radio broadcast, Mississippi State is driving down the field. They are trying to kick a field goal to finally beat Ole Miss. The ball is kicked, it's 27 yards out. The ball is in the air, it's fluttering, and right when it's about to pass the uprights, a 40-mile-an-hour gust of wind comes. The ball literally levitates in front of the uprights and then drops down, hits the ground, does not cross the goal on the uprights, does not go through. They don't get the points. Ball game over. Ole Miss somehow wins, and everybody's just sort of looking at like the ball just froze in the middle there and hit the ground. Craziness happens. Mississippi State fans that were alive at that game swear there was some shady stuff going on from Ole Miss. They paid for air vents or something like that coming in. That's just the conspiracy effort in that ball game. But that's what a rivalry does to you. It sort of sticks with you forever. Bringing it fast forward to now, you kind of have that same kind of feel. Mississippi State backed up against the wall. They've had some troubles this year. Definitely were not what we expected. Will Rogers is coming in. They put in a different offense. He got banged up a little bit. Zach Arnett obviously got fired. Where's Mississippi State going with this, return? How are they going to get back to normal? And Ole Miss under Lane Train rolling through, going to probably go to a New Year's Six bowl game. Only to, have a loss to Alabama and a loss to Georgia, but other than that, they've been done pretty dang good. They're the high and mighty. What does Mississippi State at home have for them? That's the kind of feel I have, where some craziness is probably going to ensue in this football game. And on top of it, just like last year, Lane Train and rumors now. Does he go to Texas A&M? Does he take another opening somewhere else? His name could be floated. Is he dedicated to Ole Miss? We don't know. And, it's always money talk. So you have that hanging over this football game. Could this be Lane Kiffin's last football game as a head coach at Ole Miss, or does he, win and keep moving forward? What other little things from the outside sort of add to this, narrative coming into this game in Starkville on Thursday night? They did get some good news. Ole Miss did. Jackson Dart declared he's coming back next year. So that gives them some stability at the quarterback position going forward. I think that will help ease some stress and allow them to continue to develop this offense moving up. Ole Miss's offense, outside of their games against Georgia and Alabama, they've been loading up on people. They've been dominating. Right now, they're third overall offense in the SEC, fourth best passing attack, sixth best rushing attack in the conference. And they scored at least 27 points in every game except for those two losses to Georgia and Alabama. So they're putting points on the board, and they're doing it. Kayshawn Judkins, a host of receivers, they're moving the ball up and down, left and right, whatever they want to do. When they're playing average to lesser opponents, they haven't been able to do it against elite defenses, but everyone else, they've been able to take care of business and put up points. And I think that right there is going to really show this Mississippi State's defense rise to the occasion. Can they dig deep and put it all on the line for one football game? They are playing for bowl eligibility. If they can get one here, that puts them in a bowl game. And you know what? If they beat Ole Miss, they probably keep them from a New Year's Six. So, again, taking that jab at your rival and trying to get it done. Mississippi State's defense, though, they have a tall task. They do have the two leading tacklers in the conference, Jet Johnson with 117 tackles and Nathaniel Watson with 116. So if those two guys are going to have to be called upon to really become true leaders, wrapping up that running game, getting after Dart, covering in the passing lanes, and preventing drives from being extended by Ole Miss. If they can continue their dominant effort on the defensive side of the football, maybe pop a turnover here and there, it keeps them in the ball game. Their offense right now, Will Rogers came back last week. Will he be able to get some of that going offensively and put some points on the board? But defense, they're going to have to keep the Ole Miss Rebs under control for a little bit. Watson also, from the passing situation, leads the conference in sacks with 10. So if he can get after the quarterback, get after Dart, maybe cause some havoc, cause some turnovers, keep them in the football game, feed off the crowd there on Thursday night, it leads something. The defense is going to have to show up and allow that offense under Will Rogers to get humming again after a long sort of up and down season they've had on that side of the ball. Both these defenses been middle of the road really in the SEC, so it's really going to be a tall task of which of them actually steps up and gets it done. It's going to come down to the ground game, though. Which team can dominate and which team can shut down the run game? If they can, get off the field quicker, maintain the drives, and help themselves out. Turnovers are the name of the game in any kind of rivalry situation. Which team will protect the football better in this environment on Thursday night? that's where it's going to come down to get the dub. Um, as much as I want to take Mississippi State and I want to go with the home crowd or literally the underdog in this situation, there's just too much talent on Ole Miss's team. The Zach Arnett hire, it was good at the moment. He took it in there, got a bowl win. Was working as a DC under the Pirate there for a while. My coach Mike Leach. But I think he just earned the task was too tall for him to keep this team organized. Too many injuries to sustain, and I think right now they're just sort of grasping at straws. Need to hit a reset. Um, I think Ole Miss finds a way to get it done. I think they win by 10. They do not cover the spread. I think Mississippi State gives them enough of a fight on Thursday night, especially the home crowd adds a little extra to it. They will escape Starkville, but the old Miss Rebs will take care of business and win the game, but they will not cover.
Fresh. This is an interesting one for me. This is one of those weird games, just like you were saying. This is one of the rivalry games, and I hate the talk of it's a rivalry game. Throw the records out. Like I legitimately my skin curdles every time I hear someone say that because it is kind of again it's just the same thing as well. If your star player gets hurt, well, it's next man up. It's disrespectful to what that person's accomplished or what that team's accomplished there as well. And this is one of those games, though, that as much as I hate that saying, it kind of rings true because neither one of these teams, neither one of these programs is ever really like a dominant world beater type of program. Like each one of these teams has very big flaws. The thing that makes me most curious is Quashon Judkins. I love this kid. I love this kid coming into the season. He was a unanimous first team All-American from us. And all of a sudden we've seen his rushing yards go down almost a full yard this year. He's not as explosive for some reason. Now, that could be a variety of things. He's only 2 touchdowns less than what he did last year. He's still got this game to play and still got a bowl game to play in. But it just seems like when I'm watching him, 2 years ago, he jumped off the screen. He's like, man, I looked at him. I was like, that's one of the best running backs in the entire country. And he's not jumping off the screen anymore. I don't know if that's scouting or what have you. Same thing with Mississippi State. Will Rogers at times last year, again, I know you had a different offensive play caller last year in the Pirate. He jumped off the screen in his ability, and I really enjoyed watching him. But the real thing with Mississippi State, I think the reason that Mississippi State's got a chance in this game, and you kind of alluded to it, is the 2 linebackers. The fact that they are the 2 lean tacklers in the SEC, they have 16 sacks in between the 2 of them. They have 4 interceptions. They've forced 4 fumbles combined. These 2 guys are wrecking balls. And that's the one thing that if I'm looking at this, if I'm talking to a Mississippi State fan, I'm saying, listen, you're going to need to keep this game ugly and sloppy. Last year, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a pouring rain type of game, if I remember right. You kind of need that type of game today on Thursday. I don't know right now, like it's saying that the weather's supposed to be 60 degrees and clear as of we're recording this, but I would really love to see like it just to become like a sloppy type of game. I think that that's what Mississippi State needs. Mississippi State right now is -2 in the turnover differential. Ole Miss is at +9. That's going to be a big thing. Neither one of these teams are like a huge ball control type of offense. Both of them are under 30 minutes a game in time of possession there. So that's going to be the conversation I'm going to have. Can Jackson Dart, Quashad Judkins, can they hold on to the football? Can they prevent like the stupid play? Can they prevent giving Mississippi State a short field? And are they able to hold the time of possession over 30 minutes in the football game? If they're able to do those 2 things, they're going to win the Egg Bowl. If not, though, if Mississippi State gets a couple of turnovers, if they're constantly getting after Jackson Dart, putting him behind the sticks, guess what? I think this game's going to get ugly real fast, quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I think that it could be just as bad as last year for Lane Train and Ole Miss. I don't know, Fresh. I'm like you. I really want a reason to pick Mississippi State. And if it's just in the honor of the Pirate, if it's the fact that I think Lane Kiffin is kind of a fraud, every year he's got these great teams and all of the talent. But like you said, when he plays lesser or equal competition, they play pretty well. But anytime they go up against the big boys, that they get their lunch handed to them. So if I'm in that Mississippi State locker room, fresh, I'm using this. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna quote the Sandlot to the kids. Remember, kids, they're heroes and they're legends. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Follow your heart and you never go wrong. That's why I'm saying the Mississippi State on the way out into the field there. I don't know if that's going to do anything. I'm with you. Give me Ole Miss to win this. I think they're going to get some revenge. I think that, unless they really lose the turnover battle by -2, I think that they're going to do just enough to win. That 11 points, I don't like that at all, though. So I'll take Mississippi in the points. Mississippi State in the points.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be that classic battle, but if Mississippi State can get some turnovers early and keep momentum, I think it does a lot. So Ole Miss, you're going to come out fired up, ready to go emotionally from the very beginning of the football game. And don't be surprised if Mississippi State throws a little trick plays in there. Take some chances because you know what? If you win, you go to a bowl game. If you lose, season's over. You got nothing else to worry about. So take some chances. Be a little aggressive. Go out there and try to take the victory. You have the home crowd behind you. If you play competitive and you keep it tight, they'll be there the entire night.
Yeah. All right, Fresh, let's go to our next game of the week. This is on Friday. This is a 3:30 kickoff, so you have a full day of digestion ready to go. This is a fun one, man. This is one that really both of these teams are 7-0 in the conference. We're talking about the UTSA Roadrunners against the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane's only losses to Mississippi State. UTSA has played a lot of teams tough. They only lost games in their non-con schedule. Both these teams really have a lot to fight for. High respectability there. Can Tulane be that group of 5 representative in the New Year's Day 6? It's going to come down to this game right now. I believe we may be seeing a rematch too in the conference title game.
Yeah, I mean, right now Tulane, the highest rated group of 5, so they're looking to repeat and go back like they did last year. I have a real tall test. No, first off, this is the one, and then whoever they might get in that title game, and it could be a rematch. So this game taking place on Friday. On Saturday, SMU Navy also plays, and SMU is they're tied with both these teams technically in that range. So if Tulane loses, SMU them are all even, and all eyes are going to be on that Navy SMU game to root for the Navy midshipmen to pull up that upset. So there could potentially be a
Right.
rematch down the road. So a lot is at stake in this football game going forward. But that just shows how competitive this was. Now, when Tulane dominated last year, it was Tajay Spears and Michael Pratt. This year, very similar combination. And for UTSA, it has been Frank Harris and a whole host of wide receivers and running backs there for the Roadrunners who've been putting up points. This year, he's dealt with a couple of injuries. They haven't been as explosive. Zachary Franklin leaving and going to Ole Miss in the transfer portal before the year. But they finally got in their groove. They took on a tougher schedule and they've played better. Come out with a 6-touchdown effort there versus USF last week. Maybe this team is hitting their stride. They've undefeated in league play. They had a couple of tough matchups outside of the conference. They're starting to get their feet together and move in the right direction. Tulane, like you mentioned, that they played very competitive versus Ole Miss early in the year. Almost got them, but lost late. There's definitely talent. We thought a lot of the talent left. Obviously, we were wrong because a lot of talent still here, and the team is playing really, really well. This game being at home in New Orleans, very, very big for them. If this was actually in San Antonio in the dome there, I would actually have a bigger – I would worry about their opportunities because that crowd there has shown the past few years in those Conference USA title games for Tulane that they can get pretty rowdy and become an environment. So this football game is going to be an adventure, and I think you're going to have 2 great quarterbacks getting after it. Frank Harris has played for San Antonio, UTSA for what it feels like 30 years now. He's going to be obviously the career passer in yards and touchdowns, and they're going to build statues of him as they move forward. But this is a chance to really staple and take this program to the next level. Winning the Conference USA is one thing. You come in here, you beat Tulane, the defending champion, and get a chance to play for an AAC title next year and opportunity to even go for a New Year's Six bowl. If they could jump up, maybe you never know what's going to happen with the rankings and how this impressive win could be. There's a lot at stake. This is also one kind of weird thing when you have success as a football team. Sometimes your head coach is going to get perched. Jeff Traylor there at UTSA, there's some rumors that he might be in line for that Texas A&M job, just like we talked about Lane Kiffin. Could this be his last gig and his last effort? Is that a distraction for the Roadrunners, or is this team going to play for him and they're going to play carefree and let it out and just go get what they're going to get? There's a lot of these factors this time of year where coaches who are these up mid-level programs coming up, they're going to be hot candidates for bigger jobs. Where does distractions come into play? Do they coach through it, even though they're taking a job? Do they interviews? Do they tell their players? How does the whole thing go down? And where's the trust between these coaches and these players as these big games come down? Because sometimes these guys are like, this guy's going to piece out on me. Where's my effort? And it should, where's that camaraderie in the locker room when it comes down to? Are they actually paying attention in meetings? Are they worried about the rumors? So a lot of these things happen. And sometimes we see it go just fine. Sometimes we see it completely fall apart, where the stress, the connection with that coach is lost, and they sort of fall down. So I'm watching that factor as well in this football game. UTSA is going to need a big day from linebacker Trey Moore. 14 sacks heading into this week, second in the nation. That's a big, big stat. Can he actually get some pressures on Pratt? Can he really become a factor and get after the quarterback? They're going to need their defense to step up, because this Tulane offense is well-oiled machine. They've had 2 years of success. They understand what they're doing. Can you go on the road and bring that defense and get some pressure, shut them down, and maybe get some turnovers, shorten the field, get them off the field, give your team a chance, because your defense and running game have to travel with you for any kind of road game, especially in a game like this magnitude down in New Orleans. I mentioned Zachary Franklin earlier. That was, Frank Harris's big target the past couple of years. He transferred to Ole Miss. They've been able to find a solid replacement for him as the years move on. Joshua Cephas has done a pretty good job taking over the reins for him and maybe sliding in the wide receiver #1 role. Probably going to get himself some NFL money down the road because of what he's been able to do and the skills he's been able to show. Right now, 76 receptions, 966, 9 touchdowns. If he could get 9 receptions for 100 plus and a touchdown this ball game, that's probably a good situation that either they're able to maintain, and he's getting separation from some pretty good coverage, because right now you have to obviously got to know that Tulane is going to rotate their coverage toward him, because he is head and shoulders the #1 target for Frank Harris in this UTSA offense. The Green Wave, last year, like we mentioned earlier, it was Pratt, it was Spears. This year, it's Pratt and Hughes. Hughes, 185, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. The two of them, it's almost like plug and play at running back position, fill in the offense, do what they want to do, and keep making it happen. It's been a thing of beauty to see what Tulane's been able to do. I know we had our doubts on how they're going to be able to replace them. Both these teams have replaced their big-time playmakers without any issue. Defense has been hit or miss for both these teams. Offense is the name of the game for both of them. And in the end, I'm still, where's Frank Harris going to go? Does he have another option? Can he use his legs a little bit more? I think Michael Pratt's been through the battles. That win over USC last year in the Cotton Bowl definitely will hold true, and is a statement to show this team is built for the long distance, built for the longevity. I think they're just too much in this football game. Tulane will find a way. UTSA will give them a heck of a fight. They will put it out there. They will take it to them. I think Frank Harris gets another chance to have a national showcase. So please tune in this football game and watch, because you're going to see a special kid at quarterback, Michael Pratt and the Tulane Green Wave. Get it done. I'm going to say 27-21. A late drive there from the Green Wave. They're going to survive. And then fingers crossed the rest of the way for the AAC title foe in the championship game the week after. But Tulane will get it done, and they will host the title game next week.
Yeah, you're right about this, Fresh. Frank Harris, special player, man. And this is the crazy thing. Something that we've talked about quite a bit with this podcast over time. One of the things when we started doing this is we talked about how we didn't want it to be just, team specific or conference specific, because there's so many great football players that wind up making it in the NFL, and you're like, where did they play their college ball? Like, and the kids ball out. And Frank Harris may never see the light of day in the NFL. He may be a USFL player or an XFL player, what have you. But he's one of those players that you'll talk about, or UTSA will talk about how great he was for their program. And he's just been absolutely phenomenal there. The thing with UTSA, you say that defense has been kind of hit or miss. They got this linebacker, Trey Moore. It's got 14 sacks on the year. Kid's been just an absolute monster on the defensive side. There's not a ton else over there, but he reminds me of Carter III for Army a couple of years ago, who was just an absolute beast for the Black Knights. And he was surrounded by some good players, and I shouldn't say there's like nothing else there, but he was a huge difference maker for that defense. And then the other guys were just, standard players on that defense. Same thing. I kind of feel the same thing with Trey Moore. I think he's kind of like this do everything linebacker. He's able to hit. He's really good, I think, against the run there. You take a look at what he's been able to do even in coverage. Um, he's an impressive kid. He should get a lot of looks when, maybe when we're talking about our postseason All-American team. He's an opportunity. He's a guy who has a huge opportunity. I take a look at Tulane, though. Tulane has a little bit of pressure on them in this ball game. And Michael, like you said, Michael Pratt and Hughes have just picked up where they left off last year. But they want to be that team that makes back-to-back New Year's Six games. Just outside of them is a team like Toledo that lost in a controversial game week 1 against Illinois. They had a couple of calls very late in that game go against them. They've run the table in the MAC. They've been one of the best teams in the Mid-American Conference all year. You got Liberty that's undefeated right now and probably won't have a loss on the year. Both of those two teams are just outside. So if Tulane slips up here, watch out for those teams to make a jump. So there is that little bit of pressure because there's a huge difference, especially for a program like Tulane. That type of payout from a New Year's Day 6 bowl game, even win, lose, or indifferent, that type of payout is phenomenal for a program like Tulane compared to the type of money you're going to get for the Bahamas Bowl or something along those lines, Boca Raton Bowl, that they get sent off to if they drop out of this. Fresh, this is going to be a back and forth game. I got a feeling that something's going to happen in this game where UTSA is going to wind up winning it in the long run. UTSA is that just, we talked about earlier this season, we talked about how if a team like Tennessee looked past UTSA, like it would have been an easy place that they would have gotten clipped. I think UTSA is going to be able to really control the time of possession. Tulane has been the better team at controlling the time of possession. But for me, the thing that's going to come down to it, Frank Harris, is he able to throw the ball? Is he able to kind of use his feet to scamper around a little bit? And UTSA, right now, they're averaging about 6 penalties a game. You got to have that down to the 3 or 4 mark, especially on the road. This is a 3-point spread right now, Fresh. That's home field advantage in college football. Actually, it probably tells me that Vegas may lean to thinking that UTSA is a little bit better of a team right now. So guess what? I'm going the Roadrunners. I'm going Roadrunners winning the game late field goal to win. And I'm also going to say the Navy midshipmen are going to pull off the upset against SMU, and we're going to get a rematch next week for the AAC title game.
That would be awesome because then that would actually put the game in San Antonio. They'd flip sites. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. So then you get another chance and totally redeem yourself.
I mean, I think when you look at the quarterbacks, I think Pratt is the veteran. I mean, both these guys played forever, but he's the one who sort of been to the higher level. Calm, not going to put up the 4,000 yards, 25,000 touchdowns, whatever. I'm obviously exaggerating, but he's able to, balance out the offense and be the orchestrator. Frank Harris is an amazing athlete back there, but not just an athlete. He is a legit playmaking quarterback who he's a lefty, kind of maybe not going to say he's Michael Vick, but the way he uses his legs, his vision, the way he can throw the football at all different levels, that right there shows me the kid has some skills and can be dangerous outside the pocket. So there's the game manager who's analytically solid, and then there's the playmaker at quarterback. Whichever one of those shows up on Saturday and it has the last laugh will win.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the Big Ten. This game is at high noon on Friday after Thanksgiving, and it is in Lincoln, Nebraska. The Iowa Hawkeyes are 2-point road dogs. They've
Is
already
that the final score, 2-0?
Yeah, probably. Locked up the Big Ten West already. They're facing the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska's got some stuff to play for. Matt Rule is kind of quietly turned around this program. There's not a lot of offense that's going to be played in this game. I know that, you look at Nebraska, they've lost 3 straight. They have the loss to Michigan State. They lost to Maryland. They lost to Wisconsin. But Matt Rule's had to really defrost, pun intended, the Nebraska program. Iowa just does Iowa things. I mean, they're number 3 in the Big Ten in defense, only behind Michigan and Ohio State. They don't give up a lot of yards. They don't give up a lot of points. They try to give themselves short field, and they practically have no offense. So, Presto, turn it over to you. Your turn on Iowa and Nebraska. And Nebraska's a 2-point favorite in this game. Over-under is
Well,
26.5, though.
yes. So
Which is
doing
fine.
research for this ball game, per Ben Stevens, he's on Twitter, has some great stats. The over-under is 26.5, like Seth just mentioned. That is the lowest FBS total ever. This is the 6th time in Iowa's last 14 games the over-under is the lowest FBS total ever. All 5 of those prior games have gone under, folks. This is terrible. I mean, yes, their defense is amazing because they're obviously shutting down the other team's offense, but they are doing absolutely nothing with the ball. And the defense, I think, is actually scoring, in most cases, more of the points, either through safeties or pick sixes, whatever, than the offense is. Um, hey, Kirk Ferentz, you can coach defense. You got offensive linemen. Right now, I'm not taking a tight end from your school right this year because I think Sam Laporta was the last stud you're going to have for a while. That offense is painful to watch, but it does its job. They don't turn the ball over. So if you're going to embrace a team philosophy, we're not going to put up 40 points. We're not going to put up 30 points. We are going to run the football. We're going to manage ourselves. We are going to play smart, not turn it over, use our great punter and play field position and let the opponent fail. Let the opponent make mistakes. It's a staring contest. It's whatever dull competition you want to say, but you know what? They end up somehow keep winning. Somehow they're going back to Indianapolis next week, and they're going to play either Michigan, Ohio State, and peace be with you in that case. But they have gotten there, and you can't take that away from them. Somehow, as ugly as painful it is, Iowa football gets it done. Going on the road here with a lot to play for. Do they even play? I mean, they have pride. They have a chance for a 10-win season still on the line. Where do you see this? How do they matriculate against a good defense in Nebraska on the road? Are they focused? Are they disciplined? Do they find some breaks? The game technically doesn't mean much for if they're going to Indianapolis, but it means for the overall season record. Do you find that will deep down for Iowa to have some momentum going into that game if they go out there and try to get a win on the road? This is actually the last regular season game for Kirk Ferentz's son. I'm not going to mention his full name because he hasn't scored enough points to get that right. Do they just let it all loose? Does he say, you know what, forget it? We're just going to go 4 wide or 2 tights, 2 receivers, and double slots, and just go out and just air it out. Let it loose, kid. You got nothing to lose. This is going to be another rough game for Iowa offensively. On the other side, Nebraska, you've had some bad losses. Bad loss. You lost to Michigan State. That's terrible. You blew a 14-0 lead at Wisconsin when you had that game locked up on Saturday night, and you got beat by that. You choked. That's a young team trying to get there, but you choked. You had a chance to get to a bowl. This is your last opportunity to get to a bowl game. You're 5-6 at home against a putrid offense. Can you find 10 points? Can Nebraska score 10 points? If you score 10 points, you might win the football game, and then you can go bowling. And that's a big win for Matt Rule in the way he wants to rebuild the Cornhusker program. If you don't, you lose out on the practices. You lose that on the bowl game. You're 5-7. Have a long winter. We'll see you in spring. Where can you pull out some strings and get it done? Everyone's been watching Brock Purdy out there for the 49ers tear it up. They saw him at Iowa State. He tore it up. His brother is the quarterback for Nebraska. He showed some flashes. He showed some youth. Where does he bring it on Saturday? Does he have Friday? Does he have a couple completions? Make a couple big boy throws? You got nothing to lose. You might as well let it loose. Matt Rule, go get this thing. You gave a great speech a couple weeks ago. Went viral. Truly loved that speech. That was amazing. Your players obviously respect you, and they are growing. Go get this win. Play for each other. Go beat Iowa. That's going to be a huge win. You get to a bowl game. You beat a team that's going to the Big Ten title game. It's a big momentum builder for a program trying to come back because you know what? Next year when the Big Ten even gets larger with Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA coming and no more divisions, you're going to be in trouble. And the odds of you having big wins like this, you're going to have to play spoiler a lot more often than being the old, nostalgic Nebraska, which everyone feared. You're going to be playing the spoiler role. You've got to get comfortable early. Go get this big win. Um, they sell out there. They show for every single sport. You could be having chess game at midfield there in Lincoln, and people would put 100,000 in the stadium and watch it happen. They show up to support them. Give them something because they've suffered for a while. You know what? Give me the Cornhuskers 13-7 final. They're going to win. They're going to a bowl. Kirk Ferentz going to have to do a lot of answering questions because he's going to lose that week. He's going to lose the Big Ten title game, and he's going to limp into bowl season somewhere else. But Nebraska is going to get bowl eligible, and Matt Rule's going to get his first program defining big win on Friday afternoon.
Fresh, the thing interesting about Nebraska is that they really have had three dual threat quarterbacks over there now. And that's the interesting thing that Matt Rule's got, from Jeff Sims at the beginning of the year, who was kind of a disaster throwing the ball, but he has a little bit of skill with his feet, to Heinrich Harberger from somewhere in Germany, probably not, but it's just fun to say his name like that. Heinrich Harberger. He's actually from Nebraska, but I'm sure he's German. And then Chubba Purdy, like you said, Brock Purdy's younger brother, had a huge run in that Wisconsin game. You go back to the tape on that 55-yard run, and did a great job with his feet. I think that may be the X factor in this game. Iowa, we know what Iowa's going to do. Iowa's going to turn around. They're going to hand the ball off to LaShawn Williams and Caleb Johnson. Just try to let those two guys get to work 4 yards in a cloud of dust and kind of control the clock and control the game. Get maybe a short field thanks to their defense and punch in a touchdown or two. Nebraska, though, won't go quietly into the good night, man. I really think, Purdy is going to have a game. I'm with you for some reason. I think that he started last week in his real first start. I know he came in the Maryland game a little bit, but he had his first real game in that Wisconsin game there. He's had a week worth of practice. He has a chance to get better. He ran the ball. He was averaging 7.5 yards per carry last week. I think that he can do something against this Iowa defense here. If the game was in Iowa, I would probably take the Hawkeyes. But you know what? I'm with you too, Fresh. I think Matt Rule, and the interesting thing with Matt Rule is it's year 2. Year 1 with Matt Rule is always not very good. It's always kind of like, take a look at his time over at Temple, take his time over at Baylor. It's year 2. This could be the turning point. We could look back next year when Nebraska is, maybe a 7-5, 8-4 type of team. I don't think they're going to make a huge jump like that to maybe like a 12-2 or a 10-2 team. But, where was the moment where Matt Rule's team kind of started to become, hey, this is a team on the rise that are going to be better off this year. And I think that we could kind of point back to this game. Big win by Nebraska, get themselves bowl eligible. And I'm going to say this, Fresh. The over comes in. The over
No
will come
way.
in. Yes,
No way. You already hit the eggnog early?
I am. Because I think that 27 points will be scored in this, and the over-under is at 26.5.
Wow. All right. All right. First off, this is probably the greatest segment we've all done. I thought you were going to give the President Whitmore speech from Independence Day saying, "We will not go quietly into the night. This will be our Independence Day." And now you're saying the Iowa Nebraska game is going to hit the over. Whew, folks.
Yeah.
Wow. We have a hit all time high right there.
Yeah. Last game of the year, Brett. Can't hold anything back now. So, listen, I ain't quoting classy movies. I'm quoting some funny
Joe
ones today.
Montana. Joe Montana
So,
is the quarterback.
yep. So, all right, Fresh. Let's go down to the state of Texas. Texas Red Raiders, 6-5 on the year, but 5-3 in the Big 12. They kind of had a rough go to start the season, and then have played fairly respectable in the Big 12. There, you take a look at what they've done. They have that big win over Kansas this season. They've won 3 straight. They beat TCU, beat UCF. Neither one of those teams are like world beaters. But then, you take a look, they lost to BYU, they lost to K-State. They're going to Austin, Texas. The Longhorns, though, are only a 12.5 point favorite in this game. I expected a much higher point spread in this one. I think Texas needs to put on a display. This is a Friday night game. This is a 7:30 kick, an hour before our game of the week on Friday. What you got for Texas Tech and Texas?
Well, first off, we'll start with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. You mentioned we had high expectations for them coming into the year. They lose the overtime game at Wyoming in the opener. They play a great game versus Oregon week 2. Lose by a touchdown or 8 points. And it kind of just took the flavor out of it. They had it stumbled early on. They've caught some steam. Morton, the quarterback now, has really sort of bought himself in there. 3-game winning streak. They are bowl eligible. Nice job on McGuire there to get that entire team sort of refocused out there in Lubbock. I think it was actually kind of tough. They came on the season with a lot of expectations and a lot of, everyone has a target on their back. And we've also mentioned, like in the past, about Penn State. When nobody talks about Penn State, they have great years and they sort of overtake expectations. But we put them at high standards. They've always underwhelmed. I think Texas Tech was kind of the same way. We had high expectations for them. They kind of underwhelmed, but now they're quietly got their feet under them and they're moving forward. It hasn't been the same season we all expected, but if they beat Texas, that'll be 2 straight years they've taken out the Longhorns, and that's saying something right there. It's a staple. That might ruin their college football playoff chances. Might keep them out of the Big 12 title game, but depending on tiebreakers. There's a lot of things that could happen if Texas Tech comes in here and puts on a show and upsets them in Austin on Friday night. Taj Brooks, you're going to have a night, bro. You're going to have to run rampant all over the place. So far, 226 carries, 1,300 and change, and 9 touchdowns on the season. If you can put up, if he gets 25 touches for 140 and a tut or two, that means Texas Tech's winning this ball game. You got to get the ball in his hands, whether it's through the passing game, ground game. You've got to use him. You've got to dominate the line of scrimmage, because the way Texas is winning football games right now is they're dominating the line of scrimmage. You've got to take it to them if you're Texas Tech. You've got to punish them at the line of scrimmage, run the football down their throat, get them off the field, wear them out, and make them quit in the second half. They don't have Jonathan Brooks over there. They're starting to put that running back room together. They don't have the stud Jonathan Brooks on the other side to really punish you. Ewers still come back from the injury. I think he's finally getting himself back in the groove. They have great receivers. They have great playmakers at tight end. They have a big offensive line. Their running game for Texas is in there. So if you have the running game, you keep that offense on the sideline. You wear them out. You wear them out. You wear them out. But that's a tall task for that Texas Tech front, for offensive line. Tight ends probably being involved to run the football and make your passing attack much more available, much more medium to low stress when you're throwing the football. 5-6 yard passes I'm okay with. Do not get yourself in 3rd and long. Do not get yourself in 2nd and long. That's where Texas' defensive line is going to get after the pass rush and come get you. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I think this is a different Texas team. In the past, they would always find ways to lose these games. They wouldn't have the fortitude. They wouldn't have the toughness, the mental capacity to play the full 4 quarters against teams that they should be beating. They would always show up for a big game, but these other games, they would somehow kind of trip and fall, stumble over themselves, and they wouldn't meet that expectation. I think this Texas team is different. I think they own the line of scrimmage. They've recruited better, and that's going to pay a big dividend on Friday night in Austin. How will Quinn Ewers continue to layer? He already said he's coming back next year. How will he continue to develop this passing attack? Because if you do make the playoff, you're going to have to throw the ball, whether it's Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Florida State, Oregon, Washington, whoever. If you make the playoff, you're going to have to throw the football to win, Texas. I want to see this passing game really develop, because we haven't seen as much, I think, we wanted to see, where the talent receivers there, Worthy, Mitchell, the tight end game, blowing it up and really just going all in, airing it out. I want to see a little more of that from that offense to really explode, especially with the lack of a stud running back there and Brooks not being able to play. How do you blow up this passing game? Because your defense is not beyond outworldly elite. It's good. It's pretty good, but it's not going to be 10 points or less. You're going to have to score points in the playoff game. Where's this passing game at? I think this is your last chance to get it fine-tuned before you play in the Big 12 title game, if you're so fortunate for that opportunity. A little side note, with Ewers coming back, this is Arch Manning's last game on the sideline. Does he play next week in the bowl game? But is he basically on the exit plan to get out? Because if that's going to be 2 years in Austin, when are you going to wait around when you have NIL and you have transfer portal, chance to start, get yourself ready to league? This is a big decision coming down the way. If Ewers, with that decision to come back, means that Sark wants him back. And that means he obviously will have an opportunity to start and go get and build off his game. Where does Manning go? Does he stick around? Does he leave? Where's that quarterback room might get a little more depleted in the future for next season if he decides to peace out. He does obviously need the money, but his opportunity to play is why he went to Texas, and I think that is another little underlying factor here in this football game. This could be one of the last times we see him actually don that burnt orange and white. I mentioned Morton for Texas Tech being a nice serviceable. We saw that Schaub put himself in the transfer portal again for the third time. Um, Morton's going to have to throw the football in this ball game, make some big time throws on third down. He doesn't need to be in that third long situation, but those third and three, third and fours keep drives alive. You're going to have to make the big throws. Hostile environment. How do you get this done? Embrace yourself, embrace your teammates, trust your coaching, and make the big boy throws. If you don't, um, maybe your future at Texas Tech will still be up in question. These are the games you've got to make the big throws in, and I think we're all going to try to look at him and see if he's the true quarterback of the future for Texas Tech. In the end, I think Texas is just too much. This game being at home, big offensive lines, they see the light at the end of the tunnel. If they win, they go to the Big 12 title game. From there, they keep themselves in the conversation for the playoff. There's too many big things facing right now this team. If this was 3 years ago, Texas would have failed. I think in this ball game, Texas rolls. Um, I think it's like a 34 to 17, 34 to 10 game. I think they show up with aggression and they make a statement. Because right now they need extra help. If they make a statement in this ballgame, it helps convince the committee or gives them something else to think about. Come the reviews and the updated rankings in the next couple of weeks. But Texas Tech does not have enough to handle with the Longhorns. Texas gets it done. They get it done big.
Yeah. Fresh, Morton is a really good quarterback, underratedly good quarterback. He had one really rough game. You take a look at his game against West Virginia this year. He only completed 35% of his passes in that. Majority of these games this season, the kid's been completing almost 70%, if not over 70% of his passes this year. Good quarterback, takes the right throw. He's got 4 turnovers on the year, but he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. He's thrown 4 interceptions, 12 touchdowns as well. His average yards per completion is 6.6 yards, so they're not asking him to throw the ball all over the field like the Texas Red Raiders with like Mahomes or Graham Harrell back in the day, but they're asking him to manage the football game. The other big thing that makes Texas Tech a sneaky team in this game is third down. Texas Tech is converting over 40% of their third down opportunities in this game. That's something that really, if you're able to do that in Austin and you're able to extend drives and get, these long drawn out drives where you keep the Texas offense on the sidelines, that's your recipe for winning. While I say all these things, I don't believe in my heart that Texas Tech is going to pull off the upset. It'd be kind of cool to see them pull off the upset because it would throw absolute chaos into the Big 12 title picture. I think that if I figured it out right, if Texas Tech does win this football game, I think that we and Oklahoma State and Oklahoma pull off wins for them. We would get a Bedlam rematch in the Big 12 title game. I know K-State is kind of hanging out there too, like depending on tiebreakers on what happens. But I go back to you, Fresh. I say, you take a look at what Ewers has been able to do at his time there at Texas, come back. And I think the telling sign, too, is while you brought up Arch Manning and whether or not this is going to be his last time on the sideline, because it's one thing if Ewers was going to stay around next year and you knew that he was one and done. But there's a 6'5" Malik Murphy standing in front of you as well. And when Ewers went out, Murphy was the call. So to me, the writing is on the wall. And I know, Texas fans are going to jump in the comment like they're going to make a reason why Arch Manning will not be transferring from Texas. And I'm sure that a Texas booster or an NIL collective will find millions of dollars why Arch Manning should love staying in Austin, Texas. But I don't think that matters to him. I think another kid maybe that could play an impact, but I honestly think Arch Manning winds up in a different program next year. I got Texas win this game. I think you're right, Fresh. I think the Red Raiders may hang around for a quarter, maybe a half, but they'll be too much. And I think Jonathan Brooks is going to have a day on this one. I think he's going to cross 150 yards, maybe 200 yards rushing in this game. I think they'll kind of take the air out of the football, keep it on the ground, and just let that big Texas offensive line run all over people in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a Sark knows he's built the program with the line of scrimmage, which he's going to need going forward to compete at a national level. This is a chance to showcase that out. Survive and advance. Survive and advance is the name of the game. You're better off winning by 2 as opposed to losing. So just get the W and move on to next week.
Yeah, and in Texas, as they said, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. So if we're going to quote things all day and every single one that we go in through this, figured I might as well quote some Friday Night Lights for you. All right, Fresh. Let's go to the best game for our early season or early week rivalry week. And best game, this is Friday night, 8:30. The game that was once referred to as the Civil War. This is, you know what? I have no problem calling it the Civil War. It's Oregon State. It's Oregon State traveling to Eugene, Oregon, playing the Ducks. The Ducks trying to do everything in their power to get the committee's attention. Right now, at time of record, Oregon is a 13.5 point favorite. Over under is set at 62.5. Folks, I'm going to jump fresh here for a second and say take the over in this game. I think this is going to be a lot of points in this football game. Bo Nix is going to need to ball out. It's a Heisman opportunity for him. Eyes of the nation are watching him on Friday night. This is going to be a good one, though, Fresh, because that Oregon State team, they battled Washington through a torrential downpour. And if it wasn't for Oregon State getting a little bit cute there in the third quarter, I think they could have beat Washington. So there's talent on this Beavers team. So Oregon's got to take them seriously.
Oh, no doubt. I actually think we should call this, if they're going to get away from the Civil War, let's call this the Goonies game, and the winner gets the One-Eyed Willie's treasure.
There you go.
Or the Truffle Shuffle at halftime. I
Truffle
think
shuffle.
we can make this all happen. This
Yeah.
is going to be an amazing game. The one thing that it kind of worries me, though, about Oregon State, did they use up all their magic and all their grit last week? Because that was a hard foot game at home. They had a chance, losing by 2. They battle all through, against the Huskies. Do they have enough left in the tank to play another elite football team in a short week? Does Damian Martinez have something left in the tank to go out there and run for another 150, 160 and be the bell cow for the Beavers? Does DJU and that receiving core have enough left to throw and compete with this Oregon Duck offense? Because, Bo Nix, right now, I think, I'm going to say this right now, Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix are number 1, number 2 in the Heisman campaign. I think Penix Jr. sort of fallen off. This is one of those kind of games where LSU only has 1 game left. Bo Nix has this game and potentially a Pac-12 title game to compress the committee. If he has a chance, Dan Lanning's going to let him go off. So how does Oregon State's defense corral Troy Clifford Franklin, Bucky Irvin, Bo Nix, and the entire Oregon Duck offense in Eugene? The lights are bright. The nation's watching. It's not after dark. It's not a 10 o'clock kick. It's 8:30. People are watching this football game and tuning in. This is a big task for Coach Jonathan Smith and the Oregon State Beaver team to bounce back a week after. They don't have a cupcake in between to get themselves reset and reload and come into this football game. I think that's a lot. That's a test. If they can come in this game and compete, that's a huge testament to the way they built that entire depth of that program and the way how focused they are and true they are. Just rivalry games, crazy things happen. This is unlike no other. Crazy things do happen. Speaking of weird games, I'm going to sidebar real quick because this game just blows my mind when I was diving into the annals of the Civil War. 1983 Toilet Bowl game. 0-0 final score. 11 combined fumbles, 6 were lost, 5 interceptions, and 4 missed field goals. Folks, that is a pure rivalry game. That's like a backyard family going after it, but nobody can score. Just everyone hitting the ball and punching it out, running around the slop in the mud. That's the kind of game I don't think we're going to have on Friday night. But this shows you where that game will go down. They fought and they made sure nobody scored, and somehow they tied. They allowed the tie, but they made sure nobody scored, and it was just a brawl. That's the kind of game this has to be for the Beavers to get after it. They've got to slow this down and make this a brawl. They need to bring it down to their level, muck it up, make it ugly, take the air out of the football, run the ball hard, convert your third downs, Do not let Bo Nix and that Oregon Duck offense get going. If they get going, I don't think you guys have the way to keep it up. You have to literally play the exact same way you played versus the Huskies. You need to pray for rain, pray for cold, play for sleet, whatever you can get. But you've got to make sure it's an ugly football game and make them play on your terms. Do not get in a track meet with the Ducks because right now, I personally think the Ducks are even better than the Huskies, and if they get a rematch, they're going to blow the brakes off the Washington Huskies. This is a chance right here. You cannot let them get that momentum because they're going to go put on a show and impress the committee to try to find a way to get themselves in that conversation to sneak in and get that 4 spot. Um, they are right there, and they're looking, and they're hunting, and they're hungry to make that impression. Dan Lanning coached under Nick Saban and under Kirby Smart. He knows when he has to push the buttons, and he will go for the kill shot and put up points just to impress the committee if he has to, folks. You cannot let that happen if you're Oregon State. You've got to muck it up, keep it close, make it ugly. If you lose in a close game, no harm, no foul. If you lose in a blowout fashion in a rivalry game, that's going to hurt this trajectory of this program because you've had last year, this year, you're building something, trying to get another 10-win season. All these things are happening positively for your program outside of the Pac-12 kind of dissolving, and you got you and Washington State trying to hold together with the Mountain West going on forward next year. But you have built something that's strong. This is a chance for you to cap it off and give a nice little goodbye to Oregon. Look what Oklahoma State did to Oklahoma and Bedlam. They said a goodbye in the best fashion to your rival you possibly could. Use that motivation. Go dig deep and go find it. You play tough, play aggressive, hit people in the mouth. Do not let Oregon get it rolling. If they do, it could be a tough night. But I have a feeling Jonathan Smith has a great program. This is going to be a lot tighter than people think. Oregon will not blow them out. Oregon will win. This will be another gritty battle. It'll be a great football game, full 4-quarter brawl. I'm saying 34-27. Oregon scores late, holds on, but this will be a great football game. Might actually be the second best game of the weekend behind some other game up in the Mitten State on Saturday at noon.
Yeah, fresh. I watched majority of the Oregon State Oregon game, or I'm sorry, Oregon State Washington game this past weekend. And I was trying to flip between that and the UF Missouri game and the Kansas State game, trying to watch 3 games at once. And the interesting thing was, I thought Oregon State had Washington on the ropes. And for some reason, the third quarter, Oregon State went away from Damian Martinez. And I was watching Damian Martinez, and the thing that stuck out, especially against Washington with him, is how he's got like this wide body, like for him. He's got these like thick shoulders as a running back. And the guy I was watching the game with, said he reminds him a lot of Corey Dillon. And I was like, that's actually a really good comparison for a running back there. And I was thinking more and more about this because that game came down to Washington couldn't stop Damian Martinez from running the football. And kind of Oregon State let Washington back in, like win that football game. They didn't take it away from Washington. Oregon State is a different team in Corvallis. They're going up to Eugene. This game means a lot to the Ducks. I know we've talked all year long about Troy Clifford Franklin, one of our favorite replacement wide receivers there. That kid is balling out. He really may be a first-team All-American this year. We got a couple of wide receivers that are going to have a good argument outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. on the opposite side of him. Bo Nix is basically is rewriting his own story. It's like the Auburn years never happened for him. And especially
Auburn
if he wins the Heisman, then he completely rewrites that story. And how bad is Auburn going? I wish we had Bo Nix right now. I'm with you, Fresh. I think Dan Lanning knows how important this game is. I know Oregon is going to be just sitting outside begging for another chance at Washington and Las Vegas. That game's going to be very interesting because I think both of those teams can really exploit the other side of them. I think that game is going to be an absolute shootout. But Oregon's got to win this football game to get there. Because if they don't, then we get into all sorts of things getting funky like a monkey. Because there's a possibility of, if Oregon doesn't win this football game, they didn't play Arizona. Arizona, I believe, will now go to the Big 12 title or Pac 12 title game over Oregon. And who had that on their bingo card? Like,
I had him as a team on the rise. I didn't have him playing for the title.
seriously, amazing job out of them. But I think that with all the things that I'm saying is exactly what Dan Lanning is going to be saying to Oregon, is that everything is in front of you. You control your own destiny. Because here's the thing. Someone's going to lose in the game in Ann Arbor. Florida State, now that they've lost Jordan Travis, have a really tough road to hoe against even Florida. I mean, the Gators are a different team, and then a tough road to hoe against Louisville in the ACC title game. All of a sudden, there is a very clear pathway for Oregon to get into maybe even the third spot in the college football playoff rankings. Oregon's going to win this football game fresh. I think Oregon State is going to hang around. But sooner or later, unless Oregon State hits them so hard that their clothes are out of style, if you want to quote the Goonies right there, that's going to be the type of game it's going to need to be. It's going to have to be a slugfest. Oregon State's going to really have to just trust Fenwick and Martinez all game long. I don't think they're going to be able to slow the game down enough. I think Oregon's going to put up some points quick, fast, in a hurry. They'll be up front, and you're going to have to put the ball in DJU's hand. And I just don't think he can go touchdown for touchdown against Bo Nix. I think this game stays close for about a half. And in the second half, all of a sudden, Oregon pulls away. I'm going to say Oregon covers the 13.5 in this game, but definitely take the over in my mind. And we're going to have a heck of a Pac-12 title game rematch next week in Las Vegas.
I mean, first off, how mad are the Auburn fans at themselves right now for running Bo Nix out of Auburn? They think they could have probably used him, playing New Mexico State this past week. That's just me.
Yeah. About Auburn and New Mexico State, we're going to have to save that for the Iron Bowl because I got some stuff on that.
Yeah, we'll save that one for another game.
You got to be kidding me. Like, I looked at that and said, oh, Auburn doesn't care. Don't lose to New Mexico State.
Bo
So,
Nix is just smiling cheek to cheek, loving life right now. Bo
yeah.
Nix, best decision he ever made was getting out of Auburn.
Yeah. Well, folks, that is our early rivalry week preview here. Make sure you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving from all of us to you. Enjoy your time with your family, friends, your football. This is a great week. We are thankful for every one of you who likes, subscribe, whether it's you're listening to us on Apple, whether you're watching us on the YouTube, whether you're following us along on social media. You're visiting spinnablesports.com because you guys know the Irrational Confidence podcast is part of Spinnable Sports. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. We're super thankful for him. But none of this is possible. All of these things that we're talking about, the 12,000 viewers that we had this past week, everything would not be possible without all of you. So thank you again. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I usually have a funnier send-off than this, but you know what? For Thanksgiving, I'll make sure I keep it classy.
That's a start. Everybody, enjoy your food, enjoy your family, enjoy your football. We'll be back at you with our next preview. And with that, bye, y'all.